and malpractices in the net, but we will, as we also do under the rule of law in our own society, we ask people to have a responsible life and follow the law as they know it. And of course we need openness, a free press, and so the trust should be based on the Constitution, on law, on freedom, on contracts, on assumptions between people, on, say, politeness in general even, and so on. But it should also be enforceable by audits, by mandated reporting for transparency, by, for instance, consumer protection law, and say, court, penitentiary procedures, and ethics. So if I would like to come to conclusions with respect to some of the principles of trust in digital life, as I said already before, in the first place, it depends on context, on time, location, partners, subject, the transaction circumstances, and it should include identity management, but based on what is currently kind of broadly accepted, the what we call the 7 laws of identity management and the laws of privacy. You will hear something about that later on. This means that indeed identity management is respecting in its design already the privacy issues that are necessary to protect our values. We need accountability. The point has been mentioned often. It has also been put forward in the context by people like Danny Weitzner and others. But it needs also to be sure that I don't mean to say that every person should be accountable for every action that he does on the web or wherever. It is accountability within the context. If you have contracts, if you have situations where indeed you promise or by contract or in other ways certain activities to be done by you, then of course the other party has the right to a certain accountability from your side and be able to come back to you if you do not really deliver what is expected. So it's not a question of that if I read a book on the web, then immediately that needs accountability and needs to be registered and needs to be put forward somewhere in a database. It is really about accountability in those situations where it is needed based on contracts, based on law, or based on agreements between people. A second point is transparency, and we need to see that very clearly in the context of privacy and possible anonymity. Transparency is particularly transparency of organizations that collect data. I would say the main issue is really transparency for the data collectors to ensure that the processes they use, that the data handling they have, the way they give data to others, that they are all transparent and that people can check them against the data protection law and can go to court if that wouldn't be the case. So auditability, of course, in the question of accountability and transparency is an issue. Another issue is, of course, fair distribution of responsibility in the chain of actors. There is currently a lot of blame being put on the end user. They are the people that don't know the security problems, they don't know the privacy problems, they don't know what data protection is, so they are to blame that they don't do the things in the proper way. The essence is, of course, there are many producers of tools, there are many producers of systems, and people that are designing databases where it is rather unclear what their role in the process should be and what their liability in the process should be. And there is certainly a need to think further about how the various liabilities should be set up. And you can do that by consumer protection. And it could be just making sure that the final deliverance is in accordance with the service level agreement, and that it would be the contractor who produces the final deliverable who would be liable and try to find its recourse to the ones who deliver to him. But how it is exactly done is certainly an issue of discussion, but I think there is certainly a need to get into that discussion. And we need to then support by tools and by means which are allowing easy use and dynamic assessment to help citizens and end users to understand how data is being handled, to say have a feeling on how trustworthy the other partner is, and to know what is happening really, and to also not to forget the protection of the personal sphere. And there I would say the personal sphere is more than just the person. It's also his set of little gadgets and all kind of cards and mobile and whatever, the portable computer that is around him that needs to have a certain protection. So to finalize, for us, an ICT agenda would be, when I think about the research programs that I'm working in, is first trying to come to an EID platform which is globally interoperable, which have built-in privacy, which also, by the way, should come to the management of identification of entities, not only persons, where a trust architecture will be developed that helps people to support them in their trust decisions, to ensure accountability of the data services enforced by auditing. So it's about accountability on the data, how the data is being used, the transparency also there, and then one open question, and I think it can be a very fundamental question, in order to come to the geopolitical alignment with the activities that are done in the internet, without splitting up the internet a little pieces, because or getting borders into the internet itself, but ensuring that it's known which jurisdiction is valid for which particular actions in the internet is an important issue. And the question is whether introducing a time and location in the internet in one way or another would be a possible way of solving that problem. But that is really up for discussion, and might be a hot topic in web science in the future. Consumer protection, again, international agreements with respect to the jurisdiction. New social and economic paradigms will certainly come from many of these discussions, and an active law enforcement in a digital world based on, of course, the values that we know in as a European, particularly the European values. I think we are in a place where democracy was born. I think it's very good to try and develop these things further in this particular area. I would like to stop here and thank you for your attention. Although there was in principle a 15 minutes kind of pause, I think it would be much better if you would just follow the course of the discussions. If there would be any questions, I would suggest that we have the questions after the panel, and I would like to invite Paul Spirakis and Kai Ranneberg to take place at the panel table here. In your program, you are also seeing a third speaker, which still had to be announced. We had some unfortunate circumstances which didn't make it possible to have this speaker alive here, but I have obtained from Anne Cavoukian, a very well known privacy commissioner in Toronto, to a DVD with an 80 minutes speech, and I think it would certainly be interesting to see the perspective of trust and privacy also from the corner of the privacy commissioners or data protection people.